Good morning, happy Wednesday. Just put my coffee ready to go, breakfast ready to go. It is already Wednesday of a new week. Last week I shared with you a little day in the life. It looked like this right here, where it was actually last Wednesday, so a week ago. I walked through everything we were kind of up to last week. It's a new week, so we're already up to a whole bunch of new things. It was kind of a busy week. Let me see, I feel like, what did we have? Monday, we were just getting back into it, and then I had a bunch of meetings this week. And in fact, this morning I have a 2-hour initial IEP meeting for the morning. So lots of like little sub-plans. Yesterday we had a meeting in the morning. It's our collaborative meetings. I don't know if I shared about these last year, but I have shared with you how we do day-to-day we do it 3 times a year. We do it in the fall, we do it in the winter, we do it in the spring. And then what happens is once a month, in between those day-to-days, which look at the benchmarks for fall, winter, and spring, in between them, we progress monitor children, see where they're at, and we really look closely at the students that are receiving intervention services. And then once a month, every Tuesday morning, they'll do like special ed teachers meet on one Tuesday morning, the next Tuesday, 2nd grade teachers all meet, then 1st grade teachers, then kindergarten. So every Tuesday is set aside for these collaborative meetings, and it's just about, I think it starts at 8:30 to 9:15, so about 45 minutes right in the morning, and it allows us to talk about all the kids that are receiving intervention, how it's going for them, any kids that maybe aren't receiving intervention but we're worried about. If we do have kids in a WIN group for intervention and they're actually doing really well, maybe that fall screener was just kind of a blip, or they were nervous or anything else, we can move them out of WIN and just progress monitor them. So it's just a good time for everybody to kind of be on the same page, which is nice. Tomorrow we have our first field trip. We're going to the Museum of Science, so that will be fun. I'm getting my groups all ready, making sure we're good to go. That'll be like a full day adventure. So lots of stuff to do. I'm gonna pop open my slides and just kind of walk through, I think in this week's video, just a little bit about what we're doing throughout this week so you can see where we are at learning wise. All right, let me do that. All right, so I figured let's start with writing because we're diving into an entire new writing unit. We talked about this a little in our last unit, but we are going back to sentence part, so subject and predicate, or naming part and action part. So we just kind of talk about what that is and identifying each of them. And then again, we identify, I have friends come up and I'm like, can you please circle the naming part, underline the telling part. And then our mentor text is this one right here. Let me back up. Giraffes. So because we're doing an amazing animals unit, our goal this whole unit is to write a mini all about book. So this text right here about an animal. So this one right here is our mentor text. So looking at these sentence parts, we're going to notice the giraffe is our naming part, and then we're going to do different parts or different telling parts. So stands tall, sleeps, eats leaves, runs fast, and so on. And then they are going to come up with a complete sentence using this picture. So give me something or tell me something about what's happening in the picture. We're going to underline the naming part, circle the telling part. Then we dive into our focal text. So our main statement here is animals are amazing. Students will share what animals they think are amazing and why, what makes that animal unique. This is in their new My Book, so we're gonna pass out their new My Books. And then it just says, when you want to learn more about an animal, what kind of questions do you ask? And we're just gonna go through this. We're gonna read the questions and the answers and kind of talk about how each of these body parts helps that animal and makes it unique. And then what we did is we actually brainstormed a list of all different animals we would want to learn more about. So that is over here. Let me show you. So we have our big amazing animals poster with all sorts of different animals. I had each student name an animal after they shared it with one another. They also gave a reason why they wanted to learn about this animal or why they liked this animal, and then had it up here. This book was a book we read yesterday, Best Foot Forward. It's a big nonfiction book about different animal feet and how they help that animal. And then the last part of our day one was to just take a picture walk through the mentor text, and I kind of pointed out some text features that we saw. And then it says, how do you think this book will relate to our focus statement, which was, animals are amazing. On day 2 of writing, we again did our naming part and telling part, so we talked about it. Here we got to actually come up with different naming parts for each sentence. And then again, same thing, look at the image below, come up with a complete sentence to describe it. And this is when we actually read giraffes. So yesterday we did a picture walk through it. Today we actually read it and answered questions. And then everybody got a little find the feature sheet, and I had all my students lay on their bellies with a clipboard with their page that looked just like this. And then I actually have a copy of the book through HMH that's on the slides. So we flipped through it on the smart board, and they were able to, every time we would see it, I'd say, if you see a table of contents, yell out table of contents. And they wrote the page. Same with the words to know page, picture of a giraffe, and more. The last part, since we didn't actually do any writing on this Find the Feature one, I just wanted them to write down an interesting fact they learned from one of the text features. So we just kind of talked about a lot of those bold words in the table of contents, and then they just really wrote down like a fact that they learned about giraffes. And that was kind of it for lesson number 2. And then bringing us to the lesson we're doing today, again, we have action part and naming part. The action part is what we're focusing on today. So I go through a couple examples. Instead of coming up with a naming part, we have our action part. And then, as always, come up with a sentence, underline the naming part, and circle the action part. And then today we go through, I hate this lesson that they have every single unit. It's just like unfamiliar words. It's a lot about like author's craft and why they choose these words. So everybody got a word bank, and we listened to giraffes again. So I reread the story, and then they had to go and write down any interesting words they hear. No rhyme or reason kind of to it. And then I point out these words. And if they didn't have these words, they go ahead and write these down on their page. And then we go back and we use the text features in the book to help them figure out the meaning of these words. And again, I don't think technically they were supposed to do any writing on this day. So I have them take out their journal and use one of these words in a sentence related to something they learned in the giraffe text. And that is kind of where we're at. Tomorrow we have our field trip, so we won't do any writing, but on Friday we will start doing some brainstorming about animals that we want to learn about and narrow it down from there. Good morning, happy Friday. It is the end of the week, obviously, since it's Friday. Yesterday we had our field trip to the Museum of Science, and it was so much fun. I think the last time I checked in with you, I shared a little bit about what we were doing for the week. It was Wednesday, I believe, when I checked in, so I shared a little bit about what we're up to. So today I just want to dive into a few more things. Obviously, we didn't do any teaching yesterday. By the time we got back, it was already like 2 o'clock. And everyone was zonked. So all the kids whose parents were chaperones, they just went home right after the end of it. So we were already down quite a few kids. And then we watched a Magic School Bus episode, and the kids were so engaged. And they were exhausted, but they just laid down on the rug and they watched the whole thing, and it was so cute. And then we kind of played around the classroom and went outside for a quick little recess, and we were on our way. So no learning happened yesterday, or at least no academic, in-class learning. Lots of learning was done at the actual Science Museum, which was fun. So today, the only thing we're going to do to kind of relate to that is during win time, their must-do for today is going to be to write down their favorite part of the Science Museum. So we'll share an opinion, and we will brainstorm a few ideas, and then they will write that down. And then other than that, today's going to be a usual Friday. So let me get going around the classroom, see what I need to do, and I will share with you. All right, so looking at Friday's slides, we have our morning meeting, of course. These are from my morning meeting slides. I love them. Starting in December, I do have different games. So what we do is the same, every Friday we have a game. So the 4 that we've been kind of rotating through are Zoom, Buzz, Gotcha, and Don't Be a Sunday. So starting in December, we switch up the game. There's always editable slides at the end of these where you can go and add in whatever game you want or bring back a repeat, so that's totally up to you. So this will be our last time playing Zoom. And then we have Haggerty. For phonics, we are working on digraphs. WH and SH are our 2 for this week. And then, of course, we always review our different sounds. We do the auditory drill. On Friday, with our auditory drill, we use sand. So in the sand, I say spell shh, and they have to write SH in the sand. Spell the 2 ways to make W. They'll do a W and then WH. So it's always Fun Friday with our sand. And then we blend. The review is always going to be a bunch of different sounds that we have practiced before. And then we review our focus skill, which of course for the last couple days has been digraph WH, whistle W. And then we blend some words with that exact sound. So a bunch of those. And then for dictation on Thursdays, now it is Friday, but since we went to the Museum of Science yesterday, we didn't do dictation, and I really like doing sentences. So we have a few different sentences that we go ahead and practice. I don't know why there's a CH here. We did not learn this one, but that's fine. We won't learn that till next week. And then our high frequency words, we added in this slide because there was no place for them to just like review it all. Instead, most of the slides just look like this and they just introduce our new ones, but I wanted to always review our old heart words too, and this only takes a second. So when this is up here, I have students go through each one, and then I actually call students one by one and also have them read it. And then we review the new ones. And our heart words that we review each unit are going to have the sounds that we're learning. So wash has our SH, wish, when, and so on. And then we also do our word pyramids for some fluency practice. It's still cold in here, so I'm gonna be wearing my jacket all day. Now, I already went over a little bit about the writing unit on Wednesday when I popped in, but for today's lesson, we are finally brainstorming some animals. Now, technically in the unit, you can brainstorm any animal that you want, and you can pick 3 that you would like to write about, but we're gonna kind of focus this in. I don't remember if I said this already when I first talked about this, but we do an entire all about animal book in May, and it's like a big PBL project that we do. I made this entire unit for it last year. It's great. It's so fun. We make habitats. It's just so much fun. In fact, I will link a video or 2 below where I shared about them last year because it's like their favorite thing that they do, and it's a great way to end the year. So in order to kind of make this a mini unit, this is like their first practice into it, we decided to make it about sea animals, and we had them choose just 9 different animals. So we kind of streamlined it a little bit, made it a little smaller for them, knowing that they're going to get to do this big, huge research project later at the end of the year. So this is their brainstorming sheet. And today they're just going to get a chance to brainstorm 3 different animals and draw a sketch of the ones that they would like to learn more about. So I'll flip this around and show you the slide that we're going to use. My friend Rachel just made it, and she just threw up 9 animals, like I said, for them to kind of pick from. So let me show you. So before I get to that slide, we did review adjectives today, specifically color and number adjectives. And then they had to identify the adjective in each of these sentences and add periods for the ones that I forgot. And then we always do like a your turn. There's a daily write. So they need to look at that image there, come up with an adjective and write a complete sentence with it. And then I just went over their prompt again with them. So they're choosing their favorite animal, they're writing an all about book, and they're gonna give a reason why the animal's their favorite. They're gonna share what their animal eats, where it lives, and then draw pictures to support. So this is kind of what the original slide looked like, but we turned it into this. So they're gonna get to pick between crab, shark, jellyfish, seahorse, pufferfish, starfish, clownfish, stingray, and seal. And since I knew this wouldn't take 10 whole minutes, I just had them write down the name of their animal here and draw a picture of each. And then I had them go into Epic and search for books so they could start learning about these 3 animals. They were super excited about this, which I knew that they would be, of course. They really love this. They love getting to go into Epic. And soon, I think in the next lesson, they actually go ahead and choose one of their animals. And I introduce Pebble Go for the first time, which they love Pebble Go. And then we get to add it to like the end of our win stations as a may do to go in and learn different fun facts. So they'll get to go into Pebble Go and learn more about their animals. Specifically, we're looking for, again, where their animal lives and what their animal eats. And then some pictures and fun facts to match. So it is a fun unit. They are super into it, and it goes with the reading that we're doing, the vocabulary that we're doing, and all of that fun stuff. So let me show you what we did for WIN this week. We did wrap up our shape unit, actually. So we finished 2D, 3D shapes. Really all we do is go into 2D shapes and their characteristics, 3D shapes and their characteristics. We talk about what defining and non-defining characteristics are. So like what makes a triangle, not its shape or size or color. Oh wait, it is its shape. Not its size or color or like rotation. But what it makes it a triangle is that it has 3 corners and 3 sides. And then we talk about a little bit about patterning with the shapes. That's kind of where they put it in this curriculum, and fractions, especially fractions 1/2 and 1/4. And what they kind of look like, how equal parts versus non-equal parts, all that fun stuff. This fraction unit is one of my favorites. It's a hands-on fraction unit. And then these games here for 2D and 3D shapes are also games that I love. I do also have this hands-on unit for shapes that my kids also love. So it is a relatively fast and simple unit. My kids tend to get it. It's a nice little breakup between all the hard stuff. And then next week we're diving right into numbers within 20. So that'll be another fast unit, and I'll finally get to add those posters back there. Only go till 10. Finally get to add those teen numbers. We're really going to dive into 10s and 1s. So I think next week's video, I'm going to focus on that, some of my favorite activities for that. But let me show you what we did for WIN this week so you can see what our review kind of looked like for the week. Walking over to the WIN station, bada bing, bada boom. For independent work, we have CK. So CK is what we learned last week. I told you before in our WIN stations, we are typically reviewing work that we did previously. I'm not really giving them new stuff because I do expect them to do this independently. Okay, so they have to read the word, read and match. Back, sick, neck, block, truck, brick, duck, and pack. I don't know if I know these are not on TPT. These are all in my SJT Literacy Club. I have sets of just like worksheets for CK or for digraphs. I have sets of worksheets for each of the units that we do. I will see if I can get these on TPT. They're just like simple, easy, print and go type of things. Phonics Find It, these of course are on TPT. I will share the link to these below. We do these all the time. They're very used to this structure. Not only do they have to read it and find the image below, but at the end they have to pick one of the words and write their own sentence. Capitals and periods, yes please. This, I don't know, this is from my teaching pal. This was just a fun one. I thought we had reviewed 3D shapes all last week, so they have to just kind of look at these composed figures here and color in the solids that make the larger shape. So one cone and a rectangular prism, one sphere in this short little cylinder, and so on. So fun little easy one. Let's see, for writing we did a video all about turkeys. So a SciShow Kids, all about turkeys. They had to write down a fact that they learned about turkeys, and then it went with that. This is actually the wrong. Let me grab this real quick. This directed drawing page came with it. For many of the ones that have like facts, like our turkey facts one, I also just do a quick little directed drawing so they can draw it up there. So they had to share a fact or two. And then for math, this is from that print and play unit that I shared earlier. 2D Find It. We had played this all together with 3D Find It, so they already knew how to play. They just roll the dice, whatever they land on. Rhombus, they have to color in a rhombus in here. Rectangle, rectangle. Square, square. There we go. Easy enough. And then really in reading, we got our new My Books because we dove into a new unit. So students are, we've been reading about little birds. We had like a nonfiction book about birds. We had a realistic fiction book about birds. We're going to read lots of other kind of animal fun books. We're talking a lot about nonfiction text features, all that fun stuff. So really for reading each day, we're kind of reading our book, going over the vocabulary, asking those language comprehension questions, sometimes writing in response to that, just following very much along with the curriculum. And then we go into our literacy centers. Now, I definitely shared this before, but my old video that talks about literacy centers looks like this. And I loved this way of structuring it, but towards the end of last year when we got Lexia and some other materials and things that we had to use, I restructured my literacy center time to a 1, 2, 3 model. And so my slide looks like this. I've definitely shared it before, but I know people have asked in my recent videos, so I wanted to show this. 1, 2, 3. All students do with this 1, 2, 3 model is they all do number 1 at the same time, which is Lexia. So I press that timer at the bottom. The student names that are in the corner of the slide here, they are meeting with me for that whole first 12-minute timer. It's nice and quiet during that time. So that is usually when I meet with my lowest group because everyone's quiet on their iPad. On their iPad, they're doing exactly what they need to do with their Lexia minutes. And then that group's with me. Once that first timer is done, those 2 students go back. I pull another group of students that I am working with. It's usually my second lowest group, so I see them every day during this time. And then everybody goes to number 2. Now, number 2 is sometimes a worksheet, and sometimes it is a seesaw activity like the ones I'm showing here. 2 of my favorites are read and match. Here's what it looks like. They have to just read the words and then drag over the images that I made in Seesaw. Another one is say, build, and write. It looks like this right here. They have to look at the picture and actually move the letter tiles over. And I also have decodable sentence scrambles that look like this. So I've made all of these for the phonics skills that we are teaching throughout the year. So I do have those in Seesaw. So I pretty much go back and forth each day. One time it's a Seesaw activity. The other time it is a worksheet. And I just have like a ton of different worksheets. We always practice decoding. Sometimes we practice encoding. Sometimes it's fluency. It's a little bit in between there. Some favorite worksheets are my read and match decodable sentences, like this right here. I will just do like the read and match that I just showed you in Win, that they're just doing word level. Trying to think. Just easy, quiet things. So during that second time, the second group, the number 2, either the seesaw activity or the worksheet, people are going to finish at different times, right? So that's why number 3 is there. The second they're done with number 2, while I'm still working on that second 12-minute timer, they go right to Epic on their own. So they're always reading. Now, if they don't want to do Epic, they can go to their book bin and read from their Phonics Fluency folder, but they are just reading. That's kind of like their authentic reading time, but also in their book bin, they have all of their decodables and small group text that they get with me. Their fluency folder is highly controlled, so they're not just like off willy-nilly. And on Epic, they can at least listen to authentic texts. So it's a 1, 2, 3 model. Makes my life so easy, very little prep. I love it. All right, and then the last thing we are kind of up to is science, and we are talking about the sun and the moon, and students are loving all of that. It went great because at the Museum of Science, we went to the planetarium yesterday, so students already knew how the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. We're talking about the seasons. We really, for science, don't have a curriculum, but we use a ton of Generation Genius and Mystery Science videos and activities. Now, since we only have a few minutes at the end of every day, we have like 20 minutes for science. I usually, if I'm doing Mystery Science or Generation Genius, one day is showing the video and discussing it, and the next day is doing the activity. So I'm pretty careful about the ones that I choose. I want to make sure they are engaging and fun and filled with learning for the kids. So they are loving that right now. All right, that is what we are up to this week. If you have any questions for me, let me know down in the comments. If you have any specific videos or skills you really want me to like focus in on, please let me know and I can make a video for you. But as always, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up so I know. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel and click that bell. That way you're notified of every new video. See you in the next one. Bye.